As I explained earlier, there's a body of water that absolutely surrounds our beautiful paradise, and it's a lot of the reason that we live in paradise. And I have with me today from the Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance, Sarah Davis, who is the outreach coordinator, and Ross Hamilton, who is on their advisory board. And they are also our second Wednesday breakfast sponsor. They're going to share with us a little bit about what the CBA is doing. Welcome.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing wonderful. So good to have you. Tell the folks out there a little bit about what the CBA, Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance, is.
The Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance is a nonprofit organization who is committed to sustaining and providing the best use of the natural resources in the Choctawhatchee watershed.
Now that sounds like a mouthful and a whole lot of work. What exactly do you guys do?
Well, we have several areas of activity. Monitoring the water quality is one of our major endeavors, and also monitoring the organisms in the bay. We've done some biological investigations on the animals and the plants, and we also keep up with our restoration projects. We put a lot of oyster reefs in the bay in the last few years, and we find that all sorts of organisms associate with the oyster reef. I heard you say you were a fisherman, so you probably know that you catch a few more fish if you can find those oyster beds.
Oh yeah, redfish love that stuff. Let me tell you what. So that is the place to go.
Our second area of activity is education, and we have formal education programs in 20 schools, and we reach about 2,000 students a year with education about organisms in the bay. We have two major programs: grasses in classes and dunes in schools in Okaloosa and Walton County. And this could go on forever because we also do some restoration with the oyster reefs, restoration with putting in grasses that stabilize the shoreline. Many people don't know that when the pass came in, the native vegetation was pretty much eradicated by the salt water, and we are a developing bay. One of the reasons we have such responsibility is we have a baby bay here, and of course we do a little bit of research, and some of that research is monitoring our own restoration projects, and we've done some phytoplankton work along with the Mattie Kelly Environmental Institute.
Now you have quite a reach, don't you, regionally? How far out do you stretch?
Well, CBA is a watershed organization, and we're able to collect information, data, to get an overall picture of the health of our watershed through partnerships. But locally, CBA, our objectives are mostly centered around the Choctawhatchee Bay estuary, which is comprised of the Choctawhatchee River, the Choctawhatchee Bay, and the Gulf of Mexico. And as Ross had explained in the previous question, our efforts, our monitoring efforts, restoration efforts, research efforts, and education objective all encompass the Choctawhatchee Bay estuary, because that locally is the area that we're surrounded by.
It's not that long ago that we were fairly ignorant of the impact that everybody uphill from us had on our beautiful bay, and even on our own drainage and just poor stewardship because of a lack of understanding of what's going on in that bay, right? Why is that waterway so important to us? What does all that mean?
Well, being a watershed organization is important versus just doing local efforts, because as a watershed, stormwater runoff is a big indicator of the health of our watershed, because the people way up in the watershed, the things that they put in their yards, such as pesticides, marine debris, things that are left behind, trash that is disposed of improperly, those things eventually make it into storm drains.
Even fertilizer.
Yes,
right?
fertilizer,
Huge.
pesticides, absolutely. Those things eventually make it to the bottom of the watershed, and people don't think about that. As rain, storm water comes down, those things move all the way down, get into storm drains, and storm drains do not filter that water. It immediately goes into the bay. So you think about all of those things and how they end up into our bay and how they affect the health of the bay and the health of the organisms that Ross had explained, that those things can have major impacts, negative impacts on the health of our waterways. So we have to be watershed wide. As a watershed, we have to promote stewardship practices and things that are going to allow those resources to